So there are a lot of weapons to pick from in We Who Are About to Die, and it can be tough to know which ones are worth using when you're just starting out. Sure, everyone knows the legendary ones are great, but they're also really expensive, and that's why I want to talk about some weapons that are really good, but also easy enough to get your hands on, and will pretty much be able to take you from the first couple weeks all the way to a victory. So first I want to start with some swords. Starting off really basic, you got the basic Daka. Think about this as kind of the floor of what you want when you're choosing a weapon. If this is the best you can get, it'll do alright, but really you'll want a little more. 18 damage isn't bad, but if you look at some of the other swords like the Iron Chromo, the Myrodin Daka, the Reinforced Daka, those are some better damage numbers and they're still nice cheap options that you can get early on. I like swords because they're a little longer than axes and maces, and they also give you a nice full blade to work with instead of just the little head of an axe or the club of a mace. A couple other really good swords are the Bronze and Iron Talus Dakas. These two are pretty well in line with the other swords, but they're also a little on the longer side, and they do bonus damage to flesh, which is really nice because it can boost your damage numbers big time, especially early on when many enemies don't have armor. Now, a weapon that isn't actually a sword, but pretty much feels just like one, is the Spiked Club. This is another really good, really cheap option. It's got good length, and it actually does more damage than most of the swords. So, you know, it might not look pretty, but it gets the job done nicely. Alright, let's take a little break from the swords and talk about an axe. I know I said I don't really like axes, but I'll take this one with 28 damage. The Myrodin Militia Chaka. This is a really solid weapon because it's one of the best damage numbers in the game while still being pretty cheap. And axes may not be quite as easy to use as a sword, but they're a little more specialized for beating shields. They've got a great shape for going over them, and they can also break through them easily with their bonus damage. So this is a really useful weapon, and if you do like axes, then that's even better. Now I want to talk about a sword that kind of looks like an axe, the Kapha. This is one of my absolute favorite weapons in the game. Good damage, good price, good durability, great shape. It's kind of got more of an axe shape going on, which is really nice for going over shields, but it still gives you the full blade of a sword. I've got so many victories with this thing. It should definitely be one of the weapons you grab anytime you see it in the store. Alright, so that's enough about swords. We're done with swords. Time to talk about some other really good options. First, let's talk about a spear. So, like swords, there are a lot of options when it comes to spears, and I think the best bang for your buck is with the Hanian Staka. Out of the spears that get you up over 20 damage, it's not too expensive, and it's also really long, which lets you play a safe defensive style, and that's really what you want to do with a spear. Now, it would be illegal for me to make a video about the best weapons without talking about the Feradaka. I wasn't sure if I wanted to include it since it is on the more expensive side and it's kind of more of a late game weapon, but really this might be the absolute best weapon in the game, so it's worth the price if you can manage it. The fact that it lets you play the spear style while also doing 32 damage is just nuts. If you're using spears, you can pretty much go from the Hanian to this and not even look in another weapon's direction. Last but not least, I want to talk about a couple two-handers. First, we've got the Bronze Bardiche. All things considered, this is one of the best weapons in the game. It might even be the pound for pound best if we're talking about price to production. 32 damage, plenty of durability, great reach. This is the kind of weapon that can carry you all the way to a victory. If you compare it to a lot of the other two-handers, you see how good it is and how ridiculous it is that it's so cheap. This is really one of the only two-handers you should even bother with most runs. A lot of the other ones are overpriced and just won't give you much of an upgrade over this. That being said, another worthwhile two-hander, and the only legendary weapon that I can really recommend, is the Heavy Hammer. It is on the more expensive side as well, but with a bit of luck you can get it pretty early on, and if you do, then it's game over for your enemies. Even into the late game, it still makes quick work of them, and it's got so much durability that you won't really need anything else. As for the other legendaries, obviously they're good, right? But they're all so expensive that generally I think you're better off spending that money elsewhere. Let's not forget that you also need armor, shields, doctors, training. The weapons that I've talked about here should give you more than enough power while also leaving some money for those other things. And of course, this video doesn't mean that the other weapons in the game are no good either. There are a lot of other weapons that can do good work. These ones are just my favorites and the ones I think are most worth the money and whatnot, but you know, if you really like the frying pan, then go crazy. And that's that, so let me know what you think, if there's another weapon you really like that I didn't talk about, and I'll see you later. Thanks for watching.